Welcome to the iProvMade podcast, where we help you build a better practice. I've got my awesome co-host, Jordan Smith. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, everybody. RJ, I am excited about our guest today. We've got Allyson Lewis with the 7 Minute Life. So, everybody, if you're playing this on your phone while you're doing something, go ahead. I've got some homework for you. Go ahead and prep for this. Pull out a pencil, pen, piece of paper, whatever you need to take notes on, because I guarantee you guys are going to want to take notes on this.
Welcome to the iProvMade podcast, where we help you build a more profitable practice. I'm here with my great co-host, Jordan Smith. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, RJ. How are you?
I'm great. I love that you're here, but I'm more excited to introduce a good friend of mine and someone that has helped me personally in my own life, Allyson Lewis. Hey, Allyson, how are you?
I'm great, RJ. How are you?
Allyson is CEO and Director of Learning and Innovation at the 7 Minute Life.
Oh, I love that title.
Oh, I do too. And, it wasn't immediately clear with what the 7 Minute Life was, but after spending some time together, I realized it's not just one thing. The 7 Minute Life is kind of encompassing a number of things. So, Allyson, for those that don't know you, why don't you give us kind of a little elevator pitch on how you tell people about what you do?
Well, RJ, thanks for having me today. And Jordan, great to meet you. The work you do is very important because companies today are really in an incredibly different place than they were 6 months ago. There's a need for clarity. There's a lot of uncertainty. People are looking for, how can I take what I have today and focus on the most important things? So the 7 Minute Life is a time management company. And our tagline is that we reconnect daily productivity with human potential that leads to meaningful work. And as you look at that, I believe the world is screaming out for better time management skills. Our company, I don't believe, has ever been more relevant, and we are very excited to share this really high topic content with you today to help your listeners.
Well, I love that concept, and especially for the listeners out there, right? Whether you're a doctor or you're the practice manager, there is not enough time in the day to get everything done that you want to get done and that you need to get done. So that's why I'm excited to bring, and we are both excited about bringing Allyson and her process to everybody out there.
So with the 7 Minute Life, Allyson, let's try to narrow in or focus in on, we've got an audience who we always say is physician-owned practices. Sometimes it's administrators, sometimes it's employees. Let's talk about who your program is really geared toward. Is it an entire team? Is it a very specific person? Is it a physician, or is it an employee?
Well, that's a great question. Let me kind of couch that in my own personal story, is that I was a financial advisor from the time I was 22 until I was 55. And so I was in a major corporate executive role, and I ran a little bitty team. So it's both in that corporate profile, but running a very tight-knit team, that I realized that time management had everything to do with not only our success at work, but our engagement with one another. And so our marketplace really is some individuals, but primarily we work with teams and companies and even enterprises so that they can scale. All of our material is a repeatable process. The number one thing that people have to understand about time management is, are you spending your time focusing on activities that are leading towards the goals that are most important for your business? And so really there's a step backwards, is that businesses often haven't clarified their goals. And so how can they even know what they're spending their time on is valuable or not valuable? So there are a lot of facets to this, but it affects people, small groups, small teams, and huge enterprises, trying to get everybody lined up on the same road at the same time, going the same direction.
I think that's a great segue because I want to talk just a little bit about the way we think about building a practice. And, often it starts with people calling me or Jordan and saying, hey, I want to grow my business. I need more patience. I need more patience. And what we call that symptoms. We listen to symptoms of problems all the time. And so our first step is we do have to listen to symptoms. The second thing we have to do is make sure that we're talking to someone that wants to really take accountability for the problem and do something about it. We all want to be the 2-year-old child that just kicks and screams and demand the world change for us. And unfortunately, the world doesn't work that way. And we figured out the clients that we don't work really well with are those who just don't want to do anything but just want to kick and scream. So we want to make sure we're talking to that person. The third thing that we think you have to do is you have to tease out the vision of what the future looks like in your head. You have to make sure you've got core values. You've got what we call a corporate culture that people can get behind. And a lot of times that's a vision that you can explain to people, that you can tell people where you're trying to go. And after that, and only after that, can we help build a strategy so that you can reach that vision. And after we get the strategy, then we can align the tactics that need to get done. But often as business owners, we all want to do it the exact opposite way. We just want to buy the tactics. We want to buy the sizzle. We don't want to do anything else. We just want the tactics. But we say you got to go the opposite direction. You first got to lay out the vision, then you got to build a strategy, then you lay out the tactics. And then we get into alignment after that. So the last step in our process is engaging your team, because until you get it all worked out in your head, we just don't think you can engage a team, because you won't have alignment if you don't do it in that order. So thinking about that, I think that dovetails directly into the 7-minute life, because so much is tied into, a deeper meaning of the work that we do. And I think, the time that we've spent together, I thought this aligns so perfectly, because you give the individual purpose for doing the work, but it also influences real change for the organization. So can you talk about some real results that you've gotten from your best customers? Can you kind of paint the picture of what the future looks like?
Yes. Now, here's what I try to do is I try to get people to imagine that they're in a situation. So as I'm telling this story, I want them to be the hero of the story, or the journey, or that's probably sojourner, the person taking the path.
Yeah.
At the beginning of someone coming into the 7-minute life, and it's a time management company, they come in because they have a reason. Just like you said, any kind of business has to have a problem that they're solving. And so you come in to solve the problem of practices, so that people can do exactly what you said, take them from step 1 to step 2 and run them into a place where they can have a business that's growing and thriving and is meaningful, not only to their clients, but to the physicians themselves and their staff. But people come to the 7-minute life because they hit a tipping point. So there's a line in the sand almost for all of us. And boy, do we know it when we hit that. And so we begin to ask ourselves, who am I and who do I want to be? And it's really that moment where we realize time is moving forward, and either I'm going to be aware of it, or I'm going to blink my eyes and a day is going to be gone, or I'm going to blink my eyes and a week is going to be done, or I'm going to blink my eyes and a decade of my life is going to be gone. And so really it has to start with those internal questions. And I'm sure you do this with your doctors too. What you were talking about is that until they understand the end goal, that is that really heartfelt, soul-felt, passionate vision of what's the outcome 40 years from now, what they do during today isn't going to matter. So I think that first step is realizing that most of the people that come to the 7-minute life are drifting through life. It's like they're on a raft in the middle of the ocean, and the currents are taking them wherever.
Well,
and they don't feel like they have ownership of anything. And that's a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I know I asked you a question. I want to get to what it looks like in the future, but let me pause this there, because I asked, what does it look like before and after? You had said you created this while you were leading a team. Can you take us back to that time? Like, what did your life look like when you first started this creation?
Well, when I'm first teaching a class, the very first slide says busy was killing me. And that's what my life looked like. I was living in chaos and distraction and clutter. And I had this constant sense that something was chasing me, and I just didn't quite know what it was. I was disorganized. I didn't have any focus. And what that led to for me was exhaustion, stress, anxiety, and it really shut down my business. So when you hit this point, this tipping point where you realize until I get some kind of structure around me, I was just unhappy. Not only was I not growing my business, I was frozen in time. So that was the starting point of when I said, I can't do this anymore. I need some solutions. So I began to research and study and create solutions that didn't exist. And so that was the birthing point of the 7-Minute Life.
I love that story, because I think so many more people through story, which you talked about before, is now they're saying, okay, I'm there. I mean, I think a lot of leaders, we find ourselves exactly in that space. So again, the question was, tell us what it looked like before and kind of talk about what it looks like moving forward.
Well, that's a great question, because it's not like that ever really goes away. I'm still busy. There are times that I'm still overwhelmed. But what happened is that I needed tools. I needed real structure to put into place. So I created a single written sheet of paper that was on a piece of paper. And all I realized is that every morning I needed to literally take my phone, set a timer for 7 minutes, and determine what is my goal for today. It's important to know your goals in the future, but unless they're relevant where you're taking high value actions today, it doesn't matter. So I needed to create a repeatable process that said, here's what I want. So in your industry, I want new patients. I want our patients to have higher satisfaction. Then when you create your plan for the day, what actions are you going to take today that are going to lead to patient growth, that are going to lead to satisfied customers, and then repeat those things. Time management becomes self-learning. It's like an error correction. As you become aware of it, you'll begin to let go of the things that don't lead you towards those goals, and you'll begin to understand the power of something that does. I'm not sure in your industry, RJ, can you give me some examples of high-value actions that your physicians could take on a daily basis?
As an example, a lot of it is good leadership. It is forgetting that most of the time, patients aren't sitting with the doctor. They might be sitting in the waiting room. They might be sitting with the front desk person. They might be sitting with a nurse, and they're mad because patients are leaving there and maybe writing a negative review about their experience. And the physician thinks, I treat these people like gold. How much better can I treat them? Well, you're about 30% of the overall experience. Mm-hmm. 70% happened when they decided to pick up the phone and call you. And so we talk about that as high value trends. I'm not sure if that's a good example in your world or not.
Well, it's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm. And also what you mentioned, Allyson, which is so many of our listeners out there and so many problems that we hear from people, exactly the spot that you were talking about you were before you started this, which was, I'm busy. And that's all I know is I come in and my schedule dominates my time, and therefore my time is spent just on my schedule, and I've got no time to focus on the business. And it's that circle of death that you get in where there's no time for planning because you don't set aside time to plan or think about the big picture, and there is no vision. It's what fire do I need to put out today, and that's as far as they're looking forward. So I want to make sure that the listeners hear that point, because I think if you didn't, I'm telling you loud and clear, pause it now, do exactly what Allyson said, and figure out how to integrate those important things into your schedule tomorrow. I'm serious. Stop now, pause it, do that. Because just that one little action, and like you said, making that a repeatable process, you're going to see strides in your organization.
It's funny that you say that so much of this, we really have to go back to the basics. And I know you do this, RJ and Jordan, because I've listened to some of your podcasts. What people really want is, what is that very first step? And so we've physically broken it down. Okay, if I'm going to plan my day, how do I even do that? I don't want to just come in and say, you need a plan of action. What does that look like? So let me give some specific tactics that I think might be helpful to your listeners here. Is that if you take out a sheet of paper and create a to-do list, that's really a don't forget to-do list. That probably adds no value to your life. You've written it on the back of a piece of paper. You haven't taken ownership of it, and it becomes a meaningless list. That is not planning your day. The very first thing I want people to do when they take out a piece of paper is put the date on it. So like if I was planning today, it would be 9/17/2020. And I want them to take ownership of that day. I want them to realize that it is important in your life and your meaning and your potential to do that. Set a timer for 7 minutes. I'm not kidding. And let's put words around what is it that you're going to accomplish today. It's a clean slate. We're not going to drift. We're going to be very directional. So what does that look like? You're thinking about what? Here are the steps. You look at your calendar. Step one, look at your what do you have coming up on your calendar? Don't let it surprise you. Plan. What do you need to do? What resources do you have to do? Step two, what projects are leading you towards a goal? Remind yourself of what it is. I want X number of specific new patients. How am I going to get there? Look at the projects that are taking you there. Is it team communication? Is it updating your marketing? Is it creating some kind of script for people to use? As silly as that sounds, we need to know what patients need to hear. So what projects are leading you towards that? And then look at all the paper on your desk. What hasn't been done? What have you gotten done? What do you need to do? After you've looked at all of that, you need to realize you can't get all of that done. So if you only have enough time, prune it back and say, what are the 5 most important things I can get done today? We call that the 5 before 11. If I can't get anything else done, if I can do these 5 things, not 100, but if you could do 5 before 11 for a week, you'd accomplish 35 high-value time management tasks that are leading you right towards a goal of building your practice and finding more purpose in work.
Wow.
Great tactical tip. I love that.
Allyson, let me ask you a question you might not be able to answer because, as we look at leaders in every organization, we all feel this way. Exactly the way all of our audience is thinking about this, the way I'm just like Allyson speaking at me. It's me. We all feel this way. Have you ever thought about, if we all feel this way, if almost all leaders in every organization, why don't they pick up your book and read your book? Or why don't they implement your system? Have you ever thought about why they don't choose to do something?
Yeah, and I can tell you why. And our business model is that we want to help people. And, RJ, as people are listening to this, I know that people are in that situation. And so I hope they will reach out to me. And I know you're going to put out all that. But here's why they don't want a product. I've written 5 books. The average person reads 18 pages. I could have written 18 pages and left the rest of this blank, and no one would even know. We buy systems for thousands of dollars, and we don't watch them online. Why? The reason that people struggle is they need a team of people that can be accountable to on a regular basis, once a month, coming back. They need to instill peer-to-peer learning, where it's not something out of a book. It's not one more thing you have to do. It's a process of behaviors. It's taking that science of repetition and put it into your life. I want to put words around things. RJ, we were talking about how important words are, that an Eskimo anecdotally has 30 words for snow. Well, they experience snow differently. A wine connoisseur has thousands of physical words that they can wrap around. Well, Dawson Trotman said, my thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through my lips and my fingertips. If we don't have the words to explain, nothing matters. So you can't read it. You can't just type it in. You have to experience. You have to talk about it. That's what people really need. is to have the accountability of sharing this with the community. That's when the world is going to change.
I love that concept. And you mentioned something that we're big believers in, which is accountability. You talked about those peer groups and, those networks of people that will hold you accountable as a leader, and making sure that for those practice managers who are out there, making sure that your people hold you accountable for the things that you promise, so whether you're a provider or you're just helping somebody run a practice, I think that's super important. I love that concept.
So, Allyson, do you have a certain type of organization that you like working with, or at least do you have an ideal, what we call an ideal customer?
That's a great question, and something I'd love to have a mastermind group with physicians, or have you have that, is, who's your ideal patient? Because yes, I specifically do have an ideal customer. Gallup has done multiple surveys, and they found that only 33% of Americans are engaged at work. 67% are not engaged. And I think that's high. I think that, or low. I don't think 33% of people are engaged. Maybe it's 10%. I don't know. But my market is that 33% that are fully engaged. I can't take someone that doesn't like their job and make them more efficient. What are they going to do? Be more efficient at doing things that they don't care about? The reality is, I want to impact those people that do care about their job, that 33% that like their work and want to love it, that are efficient, that want to be more efficient, that are busy and they want to not be busy. They want to do valuable things so that they can make a difference in the world. My market is that niche company that has social impact, compassion, kindness, emotional intelligence. Those are the companies that thrive, and those are the companies that I love to work with. Now, there are a lot of companies that aren't there yet, but they can be.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they start putting words, I can only imagine a listener hearing someone encourage them that that's what they could have. They could have that level of engagement that makes their palms sweat and their heart beat. We got to help people do that.
Yeah,
I love that.
So talking to those organizations, talking to the listeners out there that are listening to this and saying, I love it. How do you've got the books, you've got the 7-Minute Life, the website, but how do you come in and kind of integrate into their practice? How do you personally and your group come in and facilitate that process for an organization that might be listening to this and saying, this is exactly what me and all my people need?
Well, that's a great question. And I am, in a business, I have great advisors all around me. And one of the things is that as a consultant, let's just take it down to the very base level, is companies, let's use doctors. Doctors have to have a return on investment when they hire specialists to come in and help them. And so the biggest return on investment that people get when they hire me is being able to retain their people. I want to help attract the right people. I want to physically give specific ways that a company or a doctor's office can attract the type of person that's in that top 33%. I want to train them on a step-by-step process to become more engaged. But let's say a physician's office has one really great person that they're paying $75,000, $110,000 a year. If they're not engaged because there's no clear vision and that person leaves, that's $100,000 loss for someone to replace. Because it's hard to find good people. And it takes 2 or 3 years to get a new person up to speed. So my value comes in when I can help take a company from where they are today, work with a team like yours, let you create the strategy, let you create these pieces, help them see that vision of, kindness, compassion, love, social impact, all of those things. And then what is it worth to them to give them repeatable processes, where they can physically use my tools? Well, if they're losing $100,000 a year because they lose one person, what are they willing to pay me? And so cards on the table, is it worth 10 grand? for 7 weeks to have someone come in like me, if you're going to get a 10-time return, I would hope almost every person listening to this call would reach out to me and say, absolutely, I'll spend $10,000 to save one employee.
Going back, so that was the kind of procedurally, how do you interact? My question prior to that was about your ideal customers, the type of people that you like working with. And you had mentioned that you want to help the people that love their job, the people that are trying their hardest. And as physicians in our audience, I can picture in their head, they've got someone in their mind that says, yes, this is Joe, and Joe loves working here and he is trying so hard. But it's not Joe that's the problem. It's the other 60% that aren't engaged, and Joe keeps taking on their job. And so he can't even get his job done. I don't need Joe. I need 6 more Joes. I need to get rid of the losers, and I need to get more Joes. Is that true? Is there something that you can do to help with that? Or is that just the nature of, the Perdido principle, where 80% of the results come from 20% of the people, and you just got to live with it? I don't know. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question, and I think it takes a special kind of leader to begin to solve that solution. First of all, it's not solvable in a lot of cases until the leader sparks that vision. It has to come. Well, it doesn't have to. I see a lot of ground up swell, a lot of these millennials and people, but it has to come from communication, people willing to listen. But if we're going to take, let's say those 33% and 67% aren't engaged, well, they're expensive. They're talking badly about you as the leader. They're negatively impacting your customers. The very first thing you have to do is onboard them correctly. Every new hire needs to see the vision, needs to understand it, needs to feel valued from the very beginning. And so there's a specific correlation to how much time a company invests in new people, in their current people, because there's a study that something like 60% of people don't even have one friend at work.
Wow.
I mean, think of the drain that takes you. And so there's some simple things we can do to engage people. I mean, simple as in having people bring in their favorite hors d'oeuvre cost you nothing, but let people bring in a potluck, bring in some warm cookies, pop some popcorn. There's some simple things you can do to engage people that are free, but giving them a vision of who you want them to grow into, of what training you're going to give to them, of the vision of who they can be, that solves a huge problem.
Very good. So following up, we talked about procedure, how you integrate. And maybe there's variations of the solutions that you bring in, but is this a conference? Is it the book? Is that the product? You've got talk a little bit about your products that are out there.
Yeah, I'd love it for people to go buy the book at Amazon, The 7-Minute Solution. If you just type in 7 minutes or Allyson Lewis, you can go to Amazon. I know you're not going to read it, but it will look great in your bookcase. You can sell it on Amazon later. Just make sure that you use it in your YouTube videos, post it on your social media. But yes, buy the book, because, even holding something in your hand will inspire you that you can learn it. That's great. That's not really the product we sell. The product we sell current day is a 7-week class where people bring in a team of 10 people, and in normal circumstances that would be live. But it's $1,000 a person, maximum 12 people. We spend 7 weeks, 2 hours a week, and we actually have a 60-page book within a facilitator's guide, so that in between the weeks you're talking to one another. And so it's not just talking to you. We teach for about 45 minutes, but on the classes we listen to one another for an hour and 15 minutes. We talk things through, and so that $10,000 to $12,000 is a process of 7 weeks. That's the product. But wait, it gets better. We have just launched a product that's $20 a month that is a live webinar once a week where people can learn week by week by week, but it's only for realtors. So you have to have realtors right now. Now, if an enterprise wants to come in where they're saying, you know, we have 10,000 people that have this problem, we will custom make that same platform for you. People don't want just one thing. Just like you're doing these podcasts, behaviors change week by week through having a series of learning. So right now, the product that people can get started with is $1,000 a person, bringing in your team on Zoom. It's a specific time, a specific day of the week. And the only homework is talking to one another.
That's a bargain. I mean, that's you know, if like the formula and the equation that you gave earlier, you know, if it can save one $100,000 employee, I mean, that's an investment you should make all day long. So I love that concept. I love that thought process behind that. And I know that all of this is resonating with our listeners out there. Talk a little bit about what success looks like as far as how do they track that incremental progress, right? Because nothing's overnight. I know that change happens once you decide to change, but you keep talking about making a repeatable process. What outcomes are a big part of this? How do you tell people to track that progress to see if they're on the right path or not?
Well, let's start with the simplest thing.
Okay.
I hate giving away secrets, Jordan. Do I have to tell people the secrets to all of this?
Just a little bit, just surface level.
Well, we're a startup company as well as a consulting company. And so imagine the Fitbit for time management. Imagine if the only thing you had to track was a did I or didn't I? The question is so simple. Am I going to take ownership of my day? Am I willing to take 7 minutes to truly think through what's most important, or am I not? You know, Fitbit, what it did for the walking world is it said, you set your own pace, you set your own goal, but at the end of the day, it's a yes or no question. Did I or didn't I? Mm-hmm. And so the metric, the simplest metric of all, is do you have a piece of paper with a date on it where you've planned your day? It's a yes or no question. So if you want to measure, all you have to measure is, am I willing? Is my life important enough to not drift? I mean, it sounds crazy that people would rather blink their eyes and be, I'm 60. Again, I'm telling secrets. But we have an app in the works that will become the Fitbit for being conscious about taking ownership of your day and stop drifting. So our big secret is we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. We need people to connect with us at the 7 Minute Life. RJ, you've done so much for so many people, and we speak the same language. There are specific actions that can be measured very simply that will create specific outcomes. It's not hard. So does that help answer your question, Jordan?
No, it does. And I love that. You know, it's the same concept of, you know, you're talking about somebody's, you know, the health of their organization, their mental health, that fulfillment for their soul, right? If you go to the gym and you get frustrated because you're not losing the weight you want to lose within 2 weeks and you quit, well, that does you no good. So sometimes tracking progress is just showing up. It's just sweating your ass off. And you got to do that with the 7 Minute Life also. So yes.
When you talk about a team of people and what you do for them, if everybody read the book, if everybody liked the idea, are there certain team members that are critical for you being successful as a coach?
Wow, that's a great question. I'd love your thoughts on that, because I think you're very intuitive in that. I'll follow up on my thoughts, but Jordan and RJ, what are your thoughts? Because absolutely, I think the answer is yes. So
yes, I mean we would agree, and you know we talk all the time about the person listening to this audience or this podcast, and you know if they don't care enough about it, if they're not engaged, if they are not going to take accountability for the results, it's just not going to happen. You know, it won't happen until the person who wants to see the change stands up and just says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of not getting the results that I want. I'm going to do something about it. And, as leaders, that's hard because I'm just like everybody else listening to this. I want to just spend money on something and fix the problem. I want to throw money at problems and think they'll just go away, and they never do. And so for us, the leaders are the most important people. If they're not backing it, and in my head, if our leader, if I demanded, hey, at my company, we're going to live the 7-minute life. If I didn't support, if I didn't promote, it would just be another thing that would kind of fizzle off, and I'd be mad about it. And at the end of the year, I would say, yeah, I even invested in the 7-minute life thing, and nobody took it on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's not even the people's fault. It's my fault. It's my fault because I didn't engage them. They're trying to read my, where they should focus their time and energy. Unless I'm not vocal about it, unless I'm not leading them, they're going to guess their way to the right answer. And often, that's a recipe for disaster. So that's my, 2-second response. Jordan, what do you think?
No, I mean, exactly the same. We use the analogy all the time. We've all been imagine yourself in a canoe with a handful of different people, and some of them are rowing in one direction on one side and some of them are the other. What happens? You go in circles. And business is the same way. If all of you guys aren't rowing the direction, it might start with that leadership team or the leader in the organization, making sure that everybody knows the direction that they want to go in. But man, one person paddling in the opposite direction of everybody else is going to make that canoe come to a standstill. So I think it starts with the leadership team, but I'm a big believer that you're only as strong as your weakest link, especially with what the scenario RJ laid out earlier, right? If you're a doctor or you're an owner that's listening to this, you're only spending a small percentage of time with your patients. If you're a practice administrator, you're not spending any time with the patients. So you might not think that the front desk person needs to go through this process. They do. You might not think that the person who, collects the payment at the window right before they leave needs to go through this process, and they do. So that would be my thought. Yeah, it starts with the leaders. They're going to set the tone, but the leaders aren't around all the time. So what happens when you're not in that room?
I have a comment now. Can I chime in?
Yeah.
You're the star of the show. You got to jump in.
No.
Somehow you flipped the script and made us start talking. We want to hear your thoughts on this.
You're 1,000% correct. 1,000%. And just what we're doing right now, the three of us talking, even though we're talking to an audience, I'm learning. That's why this podcast, we're putting words around real problems and we're offering solutions. So this talking about it is key. Now, I'm going to go into nerd mode for just a minute, but one of my friends that teaches with me has a word or phrase that he uses that's called the coefficient of friction. The coefficient of friction. And it happens when you have like a huge armoire or refrigerator or a chest of drawers, and you've got your shoulder into it and you're pushing on it and you're pushing on it and nothing happens, because it's heavy. And then all of a sudden, when you hit this coefficient of friction, all of a sudden it moves 6 feet across the room. Well, it does that because there are certain, it's almost like physics. People think all of this is hard. It's only hard in the beginning. It's getting over that first breath. And all of a sudden, what happens of how do we keep people engaged with the 7-minute life? We send them a notification. It's like a secret notification on their phone that just says, hey, did you take your 7 minutes? Or what were you most grateful for today? Or take 7 seconds and send a text to a friend. It's all that, people think creating a successful business has to be really hard. It doesn't. The hard part's making that decision to change your entire culture. Mm-hmm. And from there, with the right tools and the right strategists and the right mindset, everything can change, but it takes time. It starts with that first step, but it takes a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. Well, before we get to kind of the final round, I've got one last question. If there's a listener out there that's listening to this specific episode, and I know if you are and you've gotten this far, you're completely bought in, but you might not know how to bring this to your team, to your leadership team? You know, from a consultant standpoint, sometimes it's the fear is, I bring in this outside group and somebody's going to assume that either they're broken or what they built is broken, or the business owner hasn't built a business that's successful. And we know as consultants that's not the case, but talk about how, if there's somebody out there listening that says, I love all this, what are some things I can do to get buy-in from the rest of my team that this is something we can do? How would you suggest they start that conversation?
Well, that is a great point. I mean, beyond great point. As an entrepreneur, I couldn't have done this alone. I've tried to do this alone, and it's crazy to try to run a business without help. I mean, there's not a single entrepreneur out there that hadn't made the very same mistakes, been stuck in the very same place. People don't come to me because they're afraid they have a problem. They're incredibly aware of it, and they're coming to me because I had the very same problem. You know, we're meeting at the very same place. And, you know, so I think people do have to realize every business that I deal with has got time management problems. There is no simple solution. I mean, if somebody had solved the problem of time management, there is nothing but grace that I teach. I mean, I still don't get everything done, but boy, I get a lot more of the important things done. So the first thing is realize time management is likely is probably the key to everything that a business has to begin to solve to become successful. You have to have time to think, you have to have time to train, you have to have time to spend with your patients. So first thing is, we're all in the boat together. And so they would physically just reach out to the 7-Minute Life. I'll let you give them the contact information, but I'm a really nice person. And I know I've already had a conversation today with an organization that we're doing work with in October. We're having a Zoom call for 40 people. And we're doing those things because they're willing to pay a specific amount to get an outcome. And the beauty of what I bring to the table is I've been doing this for 30 years. We have measurable outcomes. And so people just connect, and it's a very human experience. It's innovative, it's creative, it's fun. It will instantly make a difference in your team's morale and your corporate culture. And there are going to be so many ideas that you're going to begin to be curious about, asking the question, what couldn't happen? You know, there are no limits to how this can help you. And so it becomes self-fulfilling.
Allyson, not in today, but in prior meetings, I've heard you quote a stat. And so, Jordan, to answer your question, one of the things that I would say to a partner like you, Jordan, is I would just quote a stat that, Allyson, you told me, and help me correct me, but I would say, Jordan, at our organization, we have 25 other people. And if we could get a 10% increase across 25 people, that is real dollars in our pocket. I've found a tool set that has increased efficiency above 20% for each person that has integrated this. I want you to listen to this. And I would forward this podcast along with that message to any of my partners. And Allyson, I probably just messed that stat up, but in the past, we've talked about results that you've seen. Can you add any color into that increase? Yeah,
you know, as a financial advisor, when I was paid $500,000 to take this into Morgan Stanley, because even those, you know, and these were teams. So Morgan Stanley was investing in teams of people. It wasn't investing in 13,000 people. It was selecting people that, you know, really wanted to grow. And so they paid $12,000 a day plus $250 a person for the supplies. And the metrics can be measured instantly. So the national in revenue, which I hope your practices are wanting to grow their revenue, the revenue metrics, because it was a commissions position, the average advisor that year was up 14%. The people that took on the 7-Minute Life were up 32% year over year. So it's not just let's feel better, which I think is key, but let's make more money. You know, let's run a successful business. And it's easy. It's really easy. Does that help?
Oh, that's great. That's
Sold.
great. So,
As your business partner, RJ, I'm sold. Let's go do it.
now you're finally talking my love language now, Jordan.
This whole podcast was just a ruse for me to agree to get, yeah.
So, we have this last stage. We call it the final round, Allyson. And really, we talk about businesses being systems of systems. And the whole goal is creating an organization that has repeatable processes that produce reliable results. And so in this last round, we want to ask you specific questions about your business. And, I don't want to say ignore the audience, but we're not talking about the audience's business. We're talking about your business. And the first question we like to ask is, if there was a magic reset button as it relates to starting your business, what systems would you go back and put into place sooner rather than later?
What a great question. And guess what? I had to have someone come to me, an advisor, and tell me the answer to that question. The very first thing I would do is understand my perfect customer. And I would focus on delivering to that customer, because we try to be so many things to so many different people that we end up creating ancillary, half-baked, duct-taped products that don't solve the specific problem that we're needing. So that would be the number one thing, is identify my ideal customer and focus my systems on reaching those people, selling to them. I don't know why doctors may think they don't have to sell. I mean, building a business has to be sustainable for you to make a difference as a physician. So your ideal client would have been my first thing, pruning out things that weren't in alignment with that.
We hear lots of answers. I think that's the first time we've heard this answer, but I would completely agree with you. Especially when we think about small business owners like myself, you start a business and you just think, I'll help anybody at all. There, and 10 years goes by and you think, man, the specialist, I wish I would have started becoming a specialist 10 years ago. So very, very great answer. I couldn't agree with you more. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is one strategy or recipe that if business owners and their teams could consistently apply every day would compound into big wins for them over time?
Take a sheet of paper, put the date on it, and take ownership of your day. It's a yes or no decision. Am I going to think through what is my goal for today? Am I going to give myself grace that all the things I didn't get done yesterday, they no longer matter? We can't go backwards. Today is a clean slate. Pull out one sheet of paper, put the date on it, and say, here's a stake in the ground. I am determined to move my business forward by doing these 5 simple things.
5 before 11.
5 before 11.
I'm going to remember that forever. Never forget that thing, because it's perfect. And, I feel like, asking me right now, I think I could do 30 things before 11. Why not just put 30 things on there instead of 5, but 5 really important things before 11. That both feels empowering and doable too.
Well, yeah, it's taking the steps that leads to compound success. And that's what this does. And I love that if you do 5 of those, a week, by the end of the week, you've got 25 things that are, if you just look at the Monday through Friday, you've got 25 things, big picture things that you've done to help move your practice forward in the direction you want to move it to. Allyson, this has been a pleasure. I love this. I'm energized by this conversation. I know listeners are too. 7minutelife.com. What are some other ways that they can get in touch with you? Talk about your books. If there's some listeners out there that have questions, how can they find out more about you and your process?
I'm one of these people that likes to talk to people. I'm old school, analog. Sync, one at a time. Just pick up a telephone, and you can put this at the bottom of the entire reel. Pick up the phone and let's have a conversation. We're all in this together. So call me, not my team, call me at 870-897-4494. Now, I don't do that very often. That is my personal line, direct to me. When you are ready to take that step, that coefficient of friction, you've been pushing and pushing, and you're ready to really make a difference, then there's got to be that line in the sand where you say, I'm going to continue to lose money, or I'm going to continue to be unhappy, or I'm going to invest in my team and in my company, in my personal mental health, and I'm going to find all those things by doing some really simple, repeatable behavior. So the step they would need to take is to pick up the phone and let's be friends. Let's have a conversation.
I love that. And I'll tell you, from knowing Allyson, the small bit of time that I do, she's completely open. And I would take that all day long. Phone number exclusive for podcast listeners. If you've made it this far, you've got a very special treat, which is Allyson's personal cell phone number, 870-897-4494. Also, go check out The 7 Minute Life. Publisher of a lot of books, written books. Go check those out on Amazon, on her website too. She's got a really cool planner on there. Allyson, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You are very welcome. It is my pleasure to be your friend, and I'm grateful for all that you do to the people you serve and to every listener that comes by your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Allyson Lewis with The 7 Minute Life.
Thanks, Allyson.
Allyson Lewis with The 7 Minute Life. RJ, you know, we do a lot of these. We talk to a lot of people on a regular basis. And there's certain folks that you just leave the conversation energized and ready to work another 8-hour day, you know?
Yeah. Often you feel tired from a podcast. This one you feel energized and be like, okay, I know what I got to do tomorrow. So her 5 before 11 just sticks out at me. And she couldn't be speaking to a better group of people. That is every one of our listeners. You feel overworked and underpaid. You feel overworked and knowing there's still so much more that can be done, but you don't have another ounce or another hour to give because there's not enough. So if you feel that way, I just feel like this is a good answer to that feeling.
Yeah, I love it. And she's serious. You know, it's a treat to get somebody like Allyson's personal cell phone number. So if you guys missed it the first couple times, 870-897-4494. If you've got questions, if you just want more details about any of the stuff she talked about, she's super open, even despite how busy she is. Pick up the phone and call her. Also, more information too, the7minutelife.com. Go check out our website. She's got books for sale. She's got some workbooks. There's tons of information on there. She's of the same mindset as us, where she's putting out lots of good. So go absorb everything that she's putting out.
All that contact information that Jordan rattled off is on our website. You can find it on our website. You can find links there. You can also find links to, obviously, this podcast. Please, if you listen to this and you thought of anybody at all, just forward this web link to those people. Like always, like our page, share it. Give us a review on Amazon, on Apple, however you listen to your podcast. Please share it. And if you've got anything that you think you'd like to hear from us, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. We're trying to do as much as we can to add value into your life. If you've got someone you'd like us to talk to, we'd love to hear from you too.
Absolutely. Until next time, thanks for listening. See you, RJ.
Thanks, Jordan.